All right, everyone. I show 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. If you're out on the East Coast, it might be noon where you are, or should be. So depending on where you are in Florida, I welcome you this morning to our Florida study and test prep group. Today, we're going to be looking at GK Math. We've been working through that the last couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey, and I'm the workshop coordinator for 240 Tutoring. And I'm live in this Facebook group every Tuesday morning or afternoon almost to help you prepare for your exam. And we've been working through the math competencies for the GK exam. So if you've missed those videos, you can check them out right here in our Facebook group. You can just scroll that down through the feed to find those videos, or you can click on the videos tab on your screen or on your mobile device and find each of the live videos. They record and we don't remove them. So if you've missed those other videos and you like what you see today, I highly suggest you go check those out. So we're going to get started and work through some practice questions today. So I'm going to share my screen with you so it's easy for you to follow along. Let me get this full screen so it's easy to see. Make sure that's working. It looks like it is. So last week we looked at competency 3, skills 1 through 4. And today we're going to look at skills 5 through 7. And let's talk about why I broke this apart. Now remember, this is tailored to your test, and we're going to talk about skills and strategy and explanations to questions. Here is kind of an overview of your test. So the math, GK, is broken into 4 competencies. We've been working in competency 3. So let me turn on my pen. Right here, competency 3, which is 29% of your exam. And this is what I refer to as kind of the scary competency. A lot of people see this and they're like, knowledge of algebraic thinking and the coordinate plane. And they're like, oh my goodness, I don't remember any of this. And guys, this is not difficult, but if you haven't done it in years, and some of you may be like me, I haven't had algebra in a really, really long time. And so you get a little bit scared of this competency, but you will be amazed with just a little bit of review how much this will come back to you. So last week we looked at skills 1 through 4. And today we're going to look at those that basically occur on that coordinate plane. So we're going to be looking at graphing and interpreting a linear equation in real world problems, identifying relations that satisfy the definition of a function, and comparing slopes of 2 linear functions represented algebraically and graphically. Now that all sounds really complicated. I promise if you stick with me, I'm going to break this down in a very simplistic manner, okay? So let's jump right into some practice. So this first question is number 28, and all of these questions come from the FTCE website, those free and public practice questions they give you, and they give you the question, they give you the correct answer, but they do not give you an explanation. So if you haven't done this in a while, we can sit here and look at these pictures all day long and I can tell you what the right answer is, but without someone to explain it to you or without the background knowledge that you need, you'll have no idea why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong. And so then the next time you come across a question like that, you're just as stuck as you were the first time. So we're actually going to work through these, and I'm going to give you some definitions, some instruction, and some strategies to help you get these questions correct. So this first one says, which of the following graphs represents a function? So we're looking at a function on a graph. Now here's the thing you need to remember. A function on a graph must pass the vertical line test. Now that sounds really complicated. You're like, what's the vertical line test? And when I show you, you're going to be like, oh, that's actually really easy. So a vertical line test can be used to determine whether a graph represents a function. That vertical line includes all the points for a particular x value. The y value of a point where a vertical line intersects a graph represents an output for that x value. So if we can draw any vertical line that intersects the graph more than once, then the graph is not a function. All right. So you're going to hear me say this over and over again in this video today. For every X, there must be one Y output. So the X can only have one Y output or one corresponding Y value. So that means whenever we graph something, it's got to pass the vertical line test. And let me show you what I mean. All we're going to do is draw vertical lines, up and down lines. If that line crosses the graph more than once, it does not pass the vertical line test. So I'm going to look at option A here first, and I'm just going to draw a vertical line. And you know what? We cross here and here. So this is not a function. I can do this anywhere along the graph, a vertical line. So this is not a function. Now I can get into much more technical terms here, but just know, if it doesn't pass the vertical line test, it's not a function. Just trust me. We could spend weeks teaching algebra, or just remember, vertical line test. If it crosses in 2 points, it is not a function. All right. C, if we look over here at this one, any place we draw a vertical line, we are going to cross at 2 different points. So C also does not pass the vertical line test. Let's look at B. If I draw a vertical line, cross at 1 point. Cross at 1 point. At nowhere is that vertical line going to intersect twice. So C or B appears to be correct. We do this one, vertical line. That was a really crooked vertical line. We can see that that vertical line is going to intersect the graph more than once. So D is not correct. The correct answer is B. Now, these two lines can be confusing. For it to pass the vertical line test, a sample might look like this. That, well, I shouldn't get on the line, would pass the vertical line test, because at no point is it going to intersect the line. But don't let that confuse you. A lot of people choose A because it's got 2 lines and it's the one that looks different. And they think, okay, well, that one's the function because all the rest are composed of 1 line. All right. So be careful with that. Correct answer, vertical line test is B. Now, in the next question, we're going to talk about why that vertical line test actually works. Okay. So vertical line test, if it crosses twice, if it intersects twice, it's not a function. Okay. So we're going to keep going. This one actually helps you understand the last one a little bit better. It says, which of the following best describes why the following is a function? Okay, so here's what you need to remember. The definition of a function. Whoops. The definition of a function. Now I'm going to give you the real simplistic one. A function is a type of relation in which every input, or each input, has only one output. So I'm going to give you the short definition. Every x value must have, I'm writing this out, so hopefully it'll stick. You're seeing it, you're hearing it, exactly 1 y value. So every x value must have exactly 1 y value, not more than 1. So let's talk about this. For students in a class, assign their height. So the students are the x and their heights are the y. Okay, so for this to be a function, it says which of the following best describes why the following is a function. So they're telling you, yes, this is a function. Yes, it's a function. So that means every student is going to have 1 height. All right, they're not going to have more than 1 height. They didn't clone themselves. Okay, so 1 height. Each student has a student number. That's not related. We're talking about students and heights. Students will only have 1 value for the height. That's what we just said. So that appears to be correct. The height of each student can be easily measured. That doesn't tell us why it's a function. We know that we have to have that one y value for the x. So nope, that's not correct either. The chance of two students having the same height is small. Well, each student is going to have their own y value. So the correct answer here is B. So this question really just tests, do you know what a function is? That every x value must have exactly one y value. All right, that relationship has to stay consistent. So let's take this one and let's move into the next question. I've encountered students who find this type of question very scary. They're like, what is this? I'm used to seeing functions on a graph. What is this? So basically, we're looking at an input-output table. They've just drawn it in circles instead of in a T-chart or table. It says, which of the following relations is a function? Let's go back to that definition of a function. The x, or the input, so we can describe the input as x and the output as y. For every x, there can only be one y output. Okay, so let's look at each of these options. Here, the x has one y. It goes to 1. Here, the x has two y's. Now, I'm going to show this real quickly on a graph. Okay, so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go back to that vertical line test. Okay, so if we go 6 on the x-axis and we go up 1, that dot would be right here. All right, we could even go back and do the 3 and the 1. So if this were 6, let's put 3 halfway, 3 and up 1. Okay, but then the next one is x is 6 and y is 2. So I'm going to go over 6 and up 2. So this was 1. Now we're going to go up to 2. Now I'm going to keep going. If I went over 9 and 3, so let's say 9 is right here, 3 is up here. Okay, and then 12 and 4. So we'd be looking at somewhere over here. Our line does this. Now, hopefully you can see back to that first question we just talked about. For it to be a function, it has to pass the vertical line test. So if I draw a vertical line anywhere through here, those aren't very vertical. Let's try that again. It can only intersect one time. Well, what's going to be the problem right here? It's going to intersect twice at the 6-1 and 6-2 points. So that cannot be a function. It does not pass the vertical line test. So anytime you have one x with two y's, you know you're going to have dots or points stacked on top of each other. And so they're not going to pass the vertical line test. So in this case, this right here, the 6 with two y values is what makes A incorrect. Let's look at B. X1, Y2, X5, Y2. And you might be thinking, oh, but they both have the same Y. But if we graph that, just bear with me in my little crooked graphs here, and we go over 1, up 2, and then we go over 5, up 2, all right, that is still going to pass the vertical line test. Okay, that is still going to pass the vertical line test as long as the x is not going to two different y's. So B, because all of these x's go to one y, is correct. Let's look at why C and D are not. So here we have our x value, here we have our y. 2, we have two y values right here, and we have two y values for the 2 and the 6. So this cannot be a function. It would not pass the vertical line test because we would have two dots on that same point, okay? So D, 3 has one y value, 6 has one y value, but 15 has two y values, so that cannot be correct. So the correct answer here is B. So again, you're seeing this trend. Every x has to have one y value. And if you graph that, that will pass the vertical line test. If it has more than one y value, then you're going to end up with the same x, going up in a straight line for the y values. And so it would not pass that vertical line test. Let's look at another one that's very similar. You'll hear me say this so many times, hopefully it'll stick. All right, which of the following input-output tables represents a function? I want to show you something. It's the same kind of question as this. They just reorganized it into a more fancy table. Okay, so basically what they're telling you is this y goes to 3. 1 also goes to 5. We could draw it like this, guys. 1 goes here and here. So it's telling you the x value of 1 has 2 different y's. So x, y. It has 3 and 5. The x value of 2 has 2 different y's. It can go 30 or 50. So A cannot be a function. Let's look at B. We have an x value of 1 that has an output of 1. We have an x value of 2 that has an output of 2. So far, so good. But looky here, we're telling us x value of 1, same as this one, now has another y value of 2. That x value of 1 can only have one corresponding y value. And so since 1 has 2 values, and since x2 has 2 y values, B also cannot be correct. It's not a function. Let's look at C. So we have an x of 2 gives us a y of 2. Again, we have another x of 2 gives us a y of 8. That can't happen. You can't have the same x value giving you 2 different y values. C is not correct. Let's check this one. X is 2, y is 2. X is 4, y is 2. Now you might be thinking, oh, there's 2 2's, but they have 2 different x values, so it's okay. The y values can be the same as long as the x values are different. And then we have an x value of 6, a y value of 4, an x value of 8, and a y value of 4. So if you graphed this one, now again, we're going to look at my messy graphs here. All right, and we graph x2. I'm just going to number this really quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, and we go up this vertical 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can keep going. And we graph this. So we have x2, y2, so about right there. Then we have x4, y2, so about right there. Then we have x6, y4, so up here, and x8, y4. Now, if we connect those lines, this is a function because it will pass that vertical line test. Anywhere I draw a vertical line, it's only going to intersect one time. One time. So D is a function. All right. It would pass the vertical line test. Now let's look at one more. Last one. This one's looking at slope. All right. Now I'm going to give you some tricks here that will help you. Okay. It says the equation of line A is given by 2y minus x equals 6. Select the equation that could represent line B. Now I'm going to tell you something about slope. If the slope is positive, y'all ready? It's going to run uphill. So slope is positive, it's going to run uphill. If the slope is negative, it's going to run downhill every time. So slope is positive, it's going to run uphill. Slope is negative, it's going to run downhill. So it's asking us for line B. What do you notice about line B? It's running which way? Uphill or downhill? It's running downhill. So I know it's got to be a negative slope. So if I look at these answer choices, A gives me a negative, B is positive, C is negative, and D is positive. I can, without doing any math, rule out B and D because they're positive, and I know line B is running downhill, so the slope has to be negative. So even if you don't know anything else, if you can remember that, you got a 50-50 shot of getting this question right. All right, line B is running downhill, so it has to be negative. Now let's actually do the math to figure out if it's A or C. So when we're looking at slope and y-intercept, we write that formula as y equals, and then we have something x, all right, plus something else. And it can be plus or minus something else. Okay, this right here is our slope, and this plus or minus, the next value is our y-intercept. Okay, so the slope is the first part of that equation, and the y-intercept is the second part. So if we look down here at our answer choices, we know we have a y-intercept of +3 or +7 without even knowing the slope. So we know this right where it intersects the y line, that is either going to be +3 or +7. Now, if I were pressed for time, I'm going to say that's pretty far up the line, and I'd probably guess +7. All right, that'd just be my guess. Okay, but we can actually determine that by figuring out, well, what's the y-intercept of line A? Because whatever the y-intercept of line A is, line B is going to be greater than that. That'll kind of tell us where that y-intercept is. So I'm just going to break that equation down that they gave us for line A. So I'm going to erase actually, so I have a little bit more space to work with. All right, I'm going to erase all this just so I have a little more space and I can write more clearly and you can follow along easier. Trade that back to my pen. I'm going to take that equation for line A, all right, and I'm going to find its slope-intercept form, okay? So I have 2y minus x equals 6. So basically, remember I told you that formula for slope and y-intercept, that form, we had to get y equals. So we've got to isolate that y. So we're going to do that with inverse operations to isolate that y. I'm going to add x to both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other to keep it balanced. So that negative x and positive x cancel each other out, and I'm left with 2y equals, I had a positive x plus 6 or plus x, and then I had a positive 6. So I'm going to put plus 6. Now you could write this as 1x if that helps you. If there's no value in front of it, you know it's 1. I've still got to isolate that y. I've got a number next to a letter, which implies multiplication. So we can divide both sides by 2 to isolate that y. So I'm left with those 2's cancel each other out. Y equals 1 divided by 2. Well, that would be half. So I'm left with half x plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. Or I could write that as a decimal. Y equals 0.5. If I divide 1 by 2, I get half plus 3. So I know the y-intercept for line A is plus 3. So that point right there is plus 3. Now that I know that, I know B's y-intercept can't be plus 3 because it intercepts way up here. A is not correct. C is correct. Negative 2x plus 7. Now I want to show you something. If you had just worked this equation and solved it for y, you would have ended up with answer choice D. So that can be confusing. So remember that when we're looking at slope and y-intercept form, we've got y equals the slope and then the y-intercept. All right, y-intercept. I can't write today. intercept, okay? And that slope will always be a value in x, and then we will have plus or minus that y-intercept, okay? It won't be a number, it'll just be the y-intercept, or it won't be a letter. So that's what you've got to remember, okay? But if that was all confusing to you, that was overwhelming, then you can actually give yourself a 50-50 shot of getting this right by just remembering a positive slope runs uphill, a negative slope runs downhill, and then you can narrow it down to A or C, okay? So not as difficult as it looks if you just remember how slope works, okay? Now, I want to give you some tips. A lot of you will find this math overwhelming and find this video overwhelming and be like, I've got to watch this again. If you are using our 240 tutoring study guides, so if you are one of our customers, then in that instructional content, I want to highlight something for you. There are videos that teach you this material. So everywhere you see this play sign, that's a video. Everywhere you see the circle is going to be written instructional content. So you're getting video and written instructional content. And some of you might be like, oh, all I want is video. Sometimes the written is very helpful because it's easy to scroll back and review something really quickly. Like, what was that word? What did she say about uphill, downhill? I can go back through that written content, skim really quickly, and find it a lot faster than trying to skip through a video. And so you'll see written instructional content and video instructional content. So if you're really struggling with the algebra portion of the GK Math exam, all of these videos are here with information about linear functions, linear expression evaluation. So all the stuff I've talked about in this video, you can get even more videos to help you with that. If you are a 240 tutoring subscriber, you'll see when you log in, it's broken down by topic. So we were looking at algebra today. You have that instructional content, which it will include video and written material. Guys, you also have flashcards, which are super helpful. And then you have all of these practice quizzes to help you practice without even taking a full-length exam. So just practice on that content. That's super powerful because you can figure out, where am I messing up? What do I still not know? Now, as I've said in our last few videos, it's very important that you know test format, time limits, how the questions are going to be asked. It's important that you know what the screen and the system looks like. You can practice that at this website. It's important that you practice using that 4-function calculator and that you're familiar with the reference sheet. The reference sheet's really going to help you on the geometry and measurement portions of the test. You also need to practice pacing. Not only can I do the math, but can I do it fairly quickly? Can I do it fairly quickly? All right. So there's that reference sheet. If you're not familiar with that, practice using it before your exam. If you want more information, we have free resources at 240tutoring.com/resources. There you can get a free diagnostic test, which will tell you what are you weak in, what are you strong in. You can also see lots of other free resources to help you, including links to these videos. You can check out our study guide. So if you want to see all this stuff I was just showing you here, these videos, this extra study material, that is all in our study guides. And there's so much material there to help you prep for your exam. If you are wanting to see the other videos on the math competencies that we've done on competency 1 and 2 and the first part of competency 3, scroll right here in this Facebook group. Down through the feed, you'll see the videos. There's a lot of discussion in this feed, so it might be faster to click on the videos tab, and then you can find all the videos there. If you want to check us out on YouTube, I put all of these videos in our YouTube channel under an FTCE study and test prep, so the same title as this Facebook group, playlist. So if you want to go check out those videos on YouTube, you certainly can. So I wish you all the best in preparing for your exam. Don't be scared of algebra. Don't be scared of algebra. Watch this video as many times as you need. Get that quick little review, and you'll be amazed at what you can remember and what you can do. I'm going to check and make sure we have any comments that I need to reply to you. Nothing that needs an answer at this point. If you're watching this video later, after the live feed has ended, please feel free to put a comment in. I do office hours right here in this Facebook group every Wednesday morning. And so on Wednesdays, I'll go through and respond to all kinds of things in our discussion, including comments on these videos. So if you have a question or a comment, or you just need some more input from me, please comment in this video below. I will see it and I will reply. So I wish you all the best as you prepare for your exam. And again, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey with 240 Tutoring. Thank you, and I'll see you next Tuesday.